The bulldog blocked the door and nobody understood. They thought it was something he had decided. They were right about that part. They were wrong about everything else. Winston had been in the Oduya household for 3 years. He was an English bulldog with the breed's characteristic stubbornness and the breed's characteristic gentleness, and the family had built their understanding of him around both. When Winston did not want to do something, he communicated it with an economy of effort that bordered on performance art. He simply became immovable. They had stopped fighting it years ago. Their daughters, Yemi and Adaze, were 4 and 2. They loved Winston in the way children love large, tolerant animals, completely and physically and with no awareness of proportion. Winston had endured this with the patience of an animal who had made peace with being a surface. On a Saturday afternoon in late September, Winston began blocking the back door, not in front of it, in it. His considerable body wedged in the frame of the open back door, facing inward, toward the girls. They were playing in the living room 10 feet away. He was watching them. Their father, Chinadu, noticed it first. He said Winston's name. Winston looked at him and did not move. Chinadu laughed. He texted his wife, who was at the grocery store, a photo. She sent back a laughing emoji. Yemi tried to go outside. Winston shifted his weight 4 inches to the right. She could not pass. She pushed on his flank. He was unmovable. She looked at her father. "Daddy, Winston won't let me go outside." "He's being silly," Chinadu said. "He'll move." Winston did not move. Adiz tried next. Same result. She sat down behind Winston and looked at his back with the philosophical resignation of a 2-year-old. Yemi came and sat beside her. For reasons that children never fully explain, both of them seemed to accept this as a reasonable state of affairs and returned to their toy cars. Chinadu watched this for a moment. He thought about moving Winston himself. He looked at the door, at the yard beyond, at the ordinary Saturday afternoon visible through the frame. He left it. 40 minutes passed. Winston did not move from the door. He had not barked, not whined, not signaled anything beyond the fact of his own positioned body. He watched the girls play. His gaze moved periodically to the door frame behind him and back to the room. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Chinedu's wife, Obiageli, came home at 4:30 p.m. She walked in through the front door and found her husband and both daughters and a bulldog arranged in the living room. Winston still planted in the back doorway. She said, "Is he still there?" "He hasn't moved," Shindu said. "Almost an hour." She looked at Winston. She had known Winston 3 years. She had lived with his stubbornness and his comic timing and his ability to occupy space as a statement rather than an incidental fact. She looked at his face. He was not doing a stubborn bulldog bit. He was focused. She went to the backyard to see what was in it. Their neighbor on the back fence, a retired man named Harold, was coming down his driveway and stopped when he saw her. He said, "Did you know there's someone in the alley?" There is an alley behind their property. Narrow, accessible through a gate. Harold had seen a man moving slowly along the fence line from his upstairs window. He had watched for several minutes. The man had tried the gate latch twice. He had stopped when Winston appeared in the doorway. The police were called. The individual was located. It was not the first call the neighborhood had received about that stretch of alley. Has your dog ever done something that made no sense, until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. Winston had been facing inward. He had not barked, not created alarm, not frightened the children. He had simply placed his body in the one space that separated his family from whatever was on the other side. He had smelled something wrong through the open door, and he had made a decision. Chinedu said later that the thing that stayed with him was the part where he had thought about moving Winston himself. He had looked at the open door at the ordinary afternoon and decided the dog was just being a bulldog. He had been right about that too. In a way, Winston was being exactly what he was, just not in the way anyone had thought. The detail that Obiageli returned to, not that evening, not that week, but over the following months, in quiet moments, was Harold's description of when it stopped. The man at the gate had tried the latch twice. He had stopped when Winston appeared in the doorway, not when someone called out, not when a light came on, when the dog appeared. A dog who had not barked, not growled, not made any audible signal. A dog who had simply been visible, who had put his broad white and fawn 90-pound body into a frame and stayed there. Whatever the man at the gate had calculated about the property, about the fence, the gate, the afternoon quiet, he had recalculated it when he saw Winston. And he had left. Obiageli thought about what that recalculation looked like. She thought about Yemi pushing on Winston's flank and finding him immovable. She thought about what an 80-pound animal who had decided not to move communicates to a person who has spent time reading open gates and quiet backyards. She thought about how Winston had done it all without involving the girls, without frightening them, without creating the kind of scene that would require explaining to a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old why the afternoon had changed. He had managed it from the inside in the way that a dog manages the things that belong to him. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. They close the back gate now when the girls play outside. Harold has their phone number. Winston still wedges himself into doorways occasionally, and they have stopped finding it funny in the old way. They find it something else, something without a convenient word. Next time, a dog who refused to enter his own yard for 3 days. What the landscaper discovered on the 4th morning in the exact corner of the yard the dog had been avoiding is something that would have ended very differently if the girls had found it first.